Welcome everyone. We'll get underway in approximately 2 minutes. We'll get underway in approximately 1 minute. Welcome everyone to today's webcast, More Effective Resource Management with Microsoft PPM. My name is Ben Chamberlain. I'm the Chief Product Officer here at UMT360. Today, what we're going to look at is actually how one of our apps for Microsoft Project Online, the UMT360 Resource Manager app, provides some of the top-down controls needed to streamline resource estimating and forecasting right within Project Online or Project Server. We think about the agenda for today. I'll reintroduce or introduce UMT360 for those of you new to us. Focus a little bit, as we always do, on our proprietary Vic Framework, which is a framework designed to systematically mature PMOs into a function that can truly orchestrate business transformation. But we'll look at this more through the lens of resource management. We'll also look at some of the key requests we were getting from our Microsoft PPM customers in terms of enhancements to the out-of-the-box resource management capabilities that led to the generation of this app, Resource Manager app. We'll spend a lion's share of today really looking at a live demonstration of the current capabilities. we'll then actually switch gears to look at what's coming next in the next 6 months as we continuously evolve all our apps for the Microsoft PPM platform. And then at the end, we'll pause for a Q&A. So please post any questions you have throughout to the GoToWebinar meeting manager, and we will certainly address them at the end of today's session. So before we jump in, the one and only poll for today, which version of Microsoft PPM are you using? Relatively simple, and the options that you have are Project Server 2013 or earlier, so 2010. For those of you occasionally still could be on earlier versions of 2007. Or you could have moved to Project Server 2016, the latest and greatest on-premise version of the Microsoft PPM platform. Or some of you, or not, could be well a majority of you, may have moved to Office 365 and taking advantage of Project Online. Could be using another PPM tool, or you're just in the market for potential offerings and PPM tool sets. So no need to repeat those. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. Another 5 seconds and we'll close the poll. Okay, let's close it and share the results. So based on all the attendees today, we got 33% that are on earlier versions, 2013 or earlier. Many of you may be considering a switch now, especially as Project Server 2013 is coming out of mainstream support in April 2018. And I'm sure you'll be evaluating the need to move to the cloud as a very viable option. 3% have actually moved to the on-premise 2016, Project Server 2016. Great to see at least the majority here moving to Project Online, which is what we see with all our customers, the transition to Office 365 as Microsoft's cloud platform and Project Online being an integral part of that platform. 10% another PPM tool and 13% none. So hopefully you'll get a brief glimpse of some of the powers of Project Online today. So that's great. That will certainly help me as we step through this. So for those of you that aren't familiar, and for those of you who are, a quick reintroduction in terms of who we are. UMT360, widely recognized as experts in all flavors of enterprise portfolio management in terms of managing projects, programs, and any other enterprise portfolio that is consuming scarce budget and resources. There are kind of two salient parts to our organization that work together in harmony. The first is we have a strong consulting team that are experts in the Microsoft PPM platform. We're a gold certified Microsoft PPM partner and helping organizations all across North America and the rest of the world to really deploy and optimize their usage of the Microsoft PPM platform, the cloud version, the on-premise version, any version that's being utilized. We also have a product team that specializes in building enterprise portfolio management solutions that extend the Microsoft PPM platform. And we'll be looking at one of those apps today, the Resource Manager app. Now, we have a long history of providing both consulting support for Microsoft PPM customers as well as building technology that seamlessly extends. In fact, not to date us, but going back to as early as, or long ago as the early 2000s and to the mid-2000s, we built one of the first portfolio management systems out there that actually encouraged Gartner and other analysts to change the space from project management to project and portfolio management. And that solution was actually acquired by Microsoft and integrated into Project Server 2010. So for those of you looking at the demand management or the portfolio prioritization, optimization, capacity planning capabilities, that was our original methodology and tool set that was acquired by Microsoft and integrated in. I only mention that because we've been doing this for a while and are well known for building gold standard solutions that extend the Microsoft PPM platform. Now, our own enterprise portfolio management solution, UMT360 Enterprise Portfolio Management Solution, is actually Gartner certified in its own right. Actually exists in Magic Quadrants and positioned in market scopes as a solution that provides additional portfolio management capabilities on the business side and IT, but just happens also to have ridiculous integration with the Microsoft PPM platform. Now, what we have done is really taken best part of 20 years of real-world customer experience in helping organizations to deploy project and portfolio management processes and systems, and come up with a framework, something we call the Vic Framework, that is systematically designed to help mature any PPM function, or let's call it a PMO for now, take them on a journey from where they are today, which is often a focus on kind of tactical execution and delivery of projects, into building them into a function that is able to truly orchestrate business transformation, the way that Gartner and other analyst firms talk about it. Now, at level 1 in this framework, there's 3 simple steps: visibility, insight, and connect. In visibility, it really is about getting the foundational controls we need to get visibility across projects. When you think about your broader enterprise portfolio model, it is very project-centric. Could be different types of projects: business, IT, iterative, waterfall, agile, but it's a project-centric model. As we move into insight, that enterprise portfolio model actually expands to include more of a hierarchical structure. We can sort of generically call that projects and programs, although it could be any kind of cascading agile structure as well: strategic epics, portfolio epics, program epics, whatever it may be. And the idea is we start to really recognize these investments or these things as business investments, and start to garner both the financial and strategic insights needed to support quicker, better, faster decisions. As we move into Connect, it's a simple recognition of the fact that these investments, projects, programs, or whatever they may be, don't exist in a vacuum, that you fund them to make a transformational change to something else, maybe to retire or enhance an application, make a change to a business process or capability, launch a product. We have to understand these broader enterprise portfolio connections, and in turn start to apply portfolio management thinking and techniques to managing these other enterprise portfolios that are also consuming scarce budget and resources. And in doing so, we build a kind of dynamic blueprint of the whole operating fabric of our business, where we're able to start to orchestrate everything: operational activity and spend, discretionary or strategic activity and spend. Now, as I drill down into level 2 in this framework, you'll see how the core capabilities that we all know and love within PPM, portfolio governance, portfolio management, demand management, and so on, kind of incrementally build across these 3 steps of visibility, insight, and connect. Our consultants are experts in really doing a gap analysis, what we call a Vic assessment, in terms of where you are today and where you want to go tomorrow, your current versus future or to-be state, and then build roadmaps to get you there. It isn't a one-size-fits-all journey. It is also not a linear or sequential model. It's not like I have to spend 2 years in visibility, then I graduate, get a badge, move to insight, spend 2 years, graduate, get a badge, get connect. Everything can move forward in parallel. It's not uncommon, for example, to have base visibility being established across projects while integrating another enterprise portfolio, like an application portfolio or a capability portfolio. So pieces of visibility occurring, pieces of this whole framework, visibility and connect, occurring in parallel. As you can see here, we start to move into connect, where we start to connect with these other enterprise portfolios, like I said before, and these are just examples of, not a definitive list of, the types of portfolios that can be integrated. Now, it would be very easy for me to say that this was the extent of our framework from a sales and marketing perspective, but that's not true. We truly live and breathe this in everything we do, and we have a strong opinion in terms of what you should be doing for each capability, for example, resource management, across each of the steps. So if I drill down into the topic of today, which is resource management, we'll start to see how things incrementally build. And this is the level that our consulting team work with organizations to figure out what are you doing today and what do you need to do tomorrow, based on the kind of key framework that I specified there in terms of differences in visibility, insight, and connect. Let's spend a little bit of time on this. In visibility, it really is a project-centric model, as I said. So how do we standardize the enterprise resource pool, look at driving capacity through working time and calendars? Different techniques to estimate and forecast resources across the different types of projects. Remember I said this is a project-centric model. You may have different types of projects operating at the same time: waterfall, agile, in the bimodal reality. Different techniques for resource requisition and allocation. Right? How do you allocate and assign and commit resources to projects, resource tracking, the introduction of financial integration, leveraging blended rates, and simple but all-important capacity planning reporting. As we move into insight, certain things change in our model. We have that hierarchical structure, so we start to introduce the idea of top-down planning. How do we assign resources, not just to the project, but at different portfolios or programs or whatever level we have in our portfolio structure. Now, because we want to truly understand capacity and availability, we need to look at ways also to integrate and start to manage non-project activities, right? Maintenance activities that really are going to give us the full picture in terms of someone's true availability and capacity. And again, different ways of doing that based on the objective of an organization. Now we have that, we can really start to run richer, dynamic capacity planning analysis. Many organizations want to move to actually secure rates, secure actual rates, so that they can start to generate everything based on actual rates. We want to overcome the security issues that are part of Sarbanes-Oxley, where you shouldn't be able to see actual rates for individuals. That's a key thing that comes into insight. More robust resource management around teams and skills management that goes beyond just the basic kind of structure we'd set up in the original enterprise resource pool. What's key in insight as well is we may in visibility have lots of different types of projects, waterfall, agile, back of the napkin stuff being managed in tools like Smartsheet. But now let's look at how we harmonize resource management across these different delivery modes or execution techniques. So bring it all together in a structured manner. Resource capitalization is also a problem many organizations are facing, something we'll touch on in today's presentation. But it's definitely part of that insight, slightly more mature way of working. As we move into Connect and we start to bind the project and program portfolios or the execution to other enterprise portfolios, we may look at and changes how we structure our top-down allocation. For example, we may move to a business capability way, planning way, or a product-driven way of working where we're going to allocate teams to those portfolios versus to the projects and programs themselves. We're also going to get a full picture now of how our resources map to whatever segmentation criteria we want to use, run, grow, transform, or anything else. So we get a full picture. Now, again, went through that very quickly, but hopefully you get an appreciation for how, at least for resource management, how this could incrementally build. Now, what's interesting here is, as part of this analysis for resource management or any of the capabilities included in this Vic framework, we're always going to recommend the right technology tools in line with the capabilities that customers want to enable in a phased manner. Everything is predicated on the Microsoft PPM platform, and a lot of the visibility capabilities as you will see. But there are trigger points that suggest the need for the UMT360 enterprise portfolio management solution, or even the apps that have been broken out of that, specific for the Microsoft PPM platform. For resource management, things like top-down resource planning, things like simplified resource estimating, forecasting, financial integration, secure rates management, capitalization, many stuff that we'll look at today. There are other trigger points, integrate actual financial management, cost management, benefits management, true program management that other apps cater to. But again, we're only going to recommend those solutions based on establishing a roadmap and the need for each organization. So today's presentation is really more about how the UMT360 Resource Manager app augments the Microsoft PPM platform. Now, we're not going to focus on a lot of the rich capabilities that exist already within the Microsoft PPM platform and resource management perspective. Microsoft PPM is a world-class end-to-end project and portfolio management solution. There's no doubt about that. Strong ability to manage enterprise resource pools, the ability to enable what they call resource engagements, which is the handshake between a project manager requesting a resource and the resource manager allocating and committing a resource to a project for a given period of time. Capacity planning analysis exists in the system. The ability to get down to the granular level, assign resources by task, reforecast resource, capture updates to tasks, complete timesheets, and of course, summarize everything in powerful reports and dashboards. So on its own, it fulfills a lot of capabilities. Our role as a top-tier Microsoft PPM partner is to extend the platform when we feel there are missing capabilities that our customers need. And that's what we did specifically with Resource Manager app and every other app that we provide for the Microsoft PPM platform. Now, if I had to summarize one of the overarching challenges in terms of resource management in the Microsoft PPM platform, it stems from the fact that one of Microsoft's key strengths is being a very strong bottom-up project and portfolio management system. It is based on the scheduling capabilities, the ubiquitous scheduling engine on the market today. Now, this provides a lot of strengths, but also can provide challenges as well. Because one of the overarching challenges we see when deploying Microsoft PPM across the enterprise is to successfully estimate and forecast resources through the life of the project requires most things to be driven from the task level. Now, that makes a lot of sense, but it assumes that all the project managers responsible for managing the execution are well-versed in the Microsoft PPM schedule, project professional. And that is not the case as you move across the enterprise. We have accidental part-time project managers. The new, obviously, push for agile project management and various things. So the reality is that what can happen when you're not well-versed in the Microsoft PPM schedule and don't understand all the idiosyncrasies of how things can change, you can get a little bit frustrated. That often leads to creation of shadow resource plans in Excel or equivalent, which are maintained outside of the system. And that's where the wheels start to wobble a little bit and maybe fall off the bus. So one of the things we look to do is how do we simplify resource estimating and forecasting to drive integrity in our resource demand and forecast data to improve capacity planning. And that was one of the reasons why we got into adding the Resource Manager app. Now, as we do with any development for our own product, UMT360 Enterprise Portfolio Manager, and the apps for the Microsoft PPM platform, we polled our Microsoft PPM customer base and said, what are your main challenges as it comes to managing resources? And this is not a definitive list, there's many more, but this is how we start to prioritize our own development. Overarching, it was like we need a simple web-based interface to easily maintain resource estimates and forecasts. For those of you that are actually on 2013, there is a web-based resource plan, right? Maybe it doesn't do everything you want it to do, but there is a web-based resource plan. When Microsoft released Engagements, which was a great step forward in terms of the handshake between a project manager and resource manager in terms of allocating resources, actually deprecated that web-based resource plan, okay? And most of our customers said, okay, I love this new engagement feature, but I need that resource plan, web-based resource plan, but I need to do more stuff anyway, right? That was our main reason for getting into this. So if you're in Project Online or Project Server 2016 today, you won't have that web-based resource plan out of the box as was in previous versions. Another thing was, how do we actually do top-down resource planning? How do I allocate resources by whatever my portfolio hierarchy manifests itself to be, portfolios, programs? I want an easier way to search for resources by skill, for example, by team, by location. It would be great if you could just stack rank and show me the available resources by skill and their actual availability, so I can very quickly select the right person who has availability without having to do too much more. Improve reviews for resource managers to allocate their teams. As I said, the resource engagement model that Microsoft released in Project Online is a significant step forward, but there are certain improvements that our resource managers have been asking for that we have allowed for in the roadmap for our Resource Manager app. One of the key ones is bulk editing of resource plans. I don't want to have to, if I'm managing 10 projects or I'm managing a bunch of people in my team, I don't want to have to open up each project individually to update the resource. I want to be able to do it in one place where I see all my projects, all my people, and I just do it in bulk without having to check in and check out each project individually. Very, very, very important. There is out-of-the-box capacity planning capabilities in the Microsoft PPM solution. In fact, it was the original solution that they acquired from us in the first place. Teams are working differently today. So there's certain requests in terms of doing capacity planning analysis and modeling the impact on capacity and any other variable in the system, financials, benefits, timeline, whatever else, that our customers are asking for. Obviously, enhanced capacity planning reports and dashboards, although Microsoft just released a whole bunch of new Power BI dashboards, which include some very nice capacity planning views and dashboards. More. I won't go through these in all detail, but how to integrate resource plans with financial plans, how to drive our financial plans from our resource information, how to move away from blended rates to actual resource rates, secure resource rates, ability to integrate with third-party timesheeting systems, ability to pull in at the project level if you're using a different timesheeting system, not the out-of-the-box timesheet engine from project, easier ways to support resource capitalization forecasting, how to snapshot at any given point in time resource data through workflow or different periods of the year, better support for agile teams, and it continues. This is not a definitive list, right? This is some of the things that led to the creation of the current version of the UMT360 Resource Manager app. In its current form, it is all about, as I said earlier, simplifying resource estimating and forecasting. And I won't read through all these things here because I just kind of touched on them, but many of the things that I just mentioned in the previous slide are available today in the Resource Manager app. Other things that I mentioned will be coming tomorrow, and we'll touch on that in the road mapping portion of today's session. So before we jump into the demonstration, how does it work? Now, this is just a quick overview. So with the UMT360, you get a resource center that synchronizes directly from the Microsoft Enterprise resource pool. With the ability to extend that, I can add additional resource fields, I can add FTE times, I can have global custom rates, secured rates resources, and the list goes on. So synchronizing with the enterprise resource pool and then just extending the metadata with things like rates and other things. The resource plan itself can be embedded at any level in the portfolio hierarchy, the way we define it: project, program, portfolio, sub-project. So that's important. When you think about a resource plan, it comes with out-of-the-box dimensions. For those of you familiar with our other apps like Cost Manager, we have budget, actuals, forecast dimensions for managing the full life cycle of financial information. Same for Resource Manager. We have 3 out-of-the-box dimensions: planned, which is used for early stage estimating, and once a project is approved, it then switches to become the forecast. Committed, which is really used to confirm, once a project is approved, what was the committed resource allocation to that project. And actuals, which can either be synced with a timesheet to pull in actuals, or as I mentioned earlier, you can pull in from any third-party system time back to the project level within these resource plans. Now, what is key with anything that 360 does is it can be completely top-down. When I say top-down, I mean disconnected from the schedule or completely integrated with the schedule. So I can define, these out-of-the-box dimensions can be top-down, as I described them, or sync with the schedule, or I can even create additional custom dimensions, which I'll talk about later, which are integrated with the schedule. So huge amount of flexibility there. I can now map my resource assignments to different cost nodes and allocation centers in the UMT360 Cost Manager system to drive financial reporting. And I also have the ability to run snapshots on the resource values at the project level, driven through workflow events like key gates, or even portfolio-wide snapshots. Now, this is not everything, but it sort of sets the scene to a degree in terms of stuff you're going to see anytime now, which will be now. So let's jump into the demonstration portion. I'll open up the Microsoft PPM solution here. So we're looking at Microsoft PPM solution. To level set, all of the UMT360 Enterprise Portfolio Management solution is deployed here. So we're looking at a completely integrated thing. As some of you may have heard me say before, there is integration to the point of confusion. Once UMT360 is deployed, it's impossible to tell where Project Online stops and UMT360 starts, which is by design. We want it to present itself as a integrated end-to-end single project, program, and portfolio management system. So complete UI integration and obvious complete data integration. So what I'm going to do here is actually open up a project. So I'm opening up Innovation Management Framework project, which is sitting in an early stage of its life cycle. So the way we built this life cycle, we're in define here to build a high-level business case. I'm seeing all the information that needs to be maintained for this business case: resource plan, cost, benefit, etc. We're just going to focus on resources for today. So I've opened up the UMT360 resource plan. This is expressing itself directly within inside the project in Microsoft PPM. So here is the 360 resource plan here. Because we're at early stages in the project, we're just seeing generic resources. I can see I have generic resources added multiple times in the grid. So how do I add and search for a new resource? I simply come in here. Remember, this is synchronizing with the Microsoft Enterprise Resource Pool. I can see everyone in the system, and I can start to search by whatever metadata we have flagged here: role, skill, location, whatever it may be. So I'm searching for PMO, seeing the PMO, people with big PMO. I can add the PMO generic, in this case, one or multiple times within the grid. I won't do that, but I can easily start to build my team in a systematic manner. Now, the reason why you may want to have a resource, whether it's named or generic, multiple times is for two reasons, really. First is I may want to look at it, even before I start to have a schedule, I may want to look at it in terms of key phases or packets of work. In this case, we can see the project manager has a certain amount of time for requirement analysis, but also design, development, etc. Right? So key phases of the project's life before we start to build a robust schedule. Another reason is we want to simplify capitalization, reporting, or estimating and forecasting. So I can flag certain activities like implementation testing, whatever, as capitalizable very easily within this grid. Now, I can have any number of resource fields that I want here, and simply I define them and add them into the system. And so again, these can come naturally from the project resource fields or extended with 360, like skills, cost mappings, and other things. But really what's interesting now is I have the ability to come in and capture my early stage estimates in one of these dimensions. Here we're just looking at the plan dimension, which, as I said, is for the early stage estimates before the project is approved. So I can come in here, manually enter, drag and drop, cut and paste FTE requirements for each one of these skills for each one of these phases. Now it can be in FTE, days, or hours. But at the moment we're disconnected from the schedule. And it can also be in varying granularities. So we're looking at quarterly here, it could be monthly, it could be yearly. And we even have the ability to do rolling wave planning, custom granularity, where for 2018 we're asking for information quarterly, 2019 quarterly, and then any out year, 2020 and beyond, is yearly. So we can get support rolling wave custom granularities in the system too. So now I mentioned dimensions. So here you'll see I have just the plan dimension, again, for early stage estimating. But I could also bring through the committed dimension too. I have actual and a custom dimension here, project plan. So I can add other dimensions when they're needed. Remember, planning is for early stage estimating. Upon approval of the project, we automatically update committed, and committed shows who's been committed or approved for that project. And that can all be dynamically done through workflow approvals. So I'm not going to take it too much further in terms of dimensions. I'm just looking at planned and committed here. Now, another thing you might want to be able to do now is integrate each one of these assignments back to the financials. So those of you familiar with UMT360, you may know we have strong financial management apps that also integrate with project. So here, for example, I'm able to map any one of these assignments back to a level in our financial structure, so cost nodes as we call them, and also allocation centers or cost centers as they've been defined in the system. This can be either set globally for a resource through the resource pool, or you can update it on a project by project basis based on these mapping fields here. Now what's interesting then is once I save information in my resource plan and I move to the UMT360 cost estimates here, we're just looking at the cost estimate or budget web part here in concert to this project, and we're seeing the financial information by quarter and at level 2. If I drill down here, you'll see that this symbol here, this triangle symbol, represents that these labor nodes here are being dynamically updated based on the values in that resource plan, right? So This is key because you can set this up so it's dynamically done. And remember, I talked about the ability to define in UMT360 secure global rates. So you can move away if we want to from blended rates to actual rates and completely secure it so no one who shouldn't see it, the right information, sees that information. Okay, so I looked really at planned and committed. What's important as well is this concept of snapshotting, right? Now, you can snapshot any values that we have in the system here, resource values for sure, cost information, milestone information, scoring metrics, benefit information that's maintained in the system. So snapshots really are taken in two key ways. The first is at the project level. Now, how that's normally done is through workflow. So if I hit any one of these gates here, like the select gate or the plan gate, I'm going to have an automatic snapshot triggered that's going to snapshot key information as I define in that template, resource values, financial values, other metrics, custom fields, whatever it may be. So at any point in time, we can take a snapshot of our resource plans, any of the dimensions in the resource plan, triggered automatically through workflow events. So that's kind of what we call entity-based snapshots. There's also portfolio-wide snapshots where, let's say, maybe quarterly, monthly, whatever you want to be doing, you're taking a snapshot across everything in a portfolio, and again, across all the values, resource, cost, benefit, milestones, whatever's allowed to be in these snapshots. So you can take portfolio-wide snapshots on a recurring basis, and you can have sort of governance-approved snapshots on a project-level basis. It's a very important feature. And one of those important pieces of plumbing that often goes overlooked across all of the UMT360 apps for the Microsoft PPM platform. So we're looking really at capturing generic assignments in the early stage of a business case. So we haven't got a huge amount of time. So what I'm just going to do is fast forward a little bit. I'm going to pick up a project that is in execution. So I'm just going to move forward to projects that are in plan and manage, the way we define this workflow, pick up health assessment reporting tool. So we're in the health assessment reporting tool project. The first thing we'll see through the workflow, again, this is a UMT360 workflow visualization here expressing the workflow in a more succinct manner, is we're in execution. And so we're seeing more information now as this project is moved into execution. So for example, now we have a more detailed schedule in association with the project based on these key phases, and you've got named resources now that are obviously executing the tasks as we want. So how does the UMT360 resource plan work in this regard? So if we go now to the UMT360 resource plan, it provides you the flexibility you need. So we were just looking at committed and planned in the previous view, right? So these were the early stage estimates and what's committed to the project. Once a project's approved, remember I said planned becomes now the ongoing forecast, so the plan dimensions expressing the forecast, and I can also bring in other dimensions. So the way we have the out-of-the-box actual dimension here, and a custom dimension that we defined called project plan. And this can be called whatever you want it to be. And this is how we see many organizations deploying this solution to simplify resource estimating and forecasting. Because what's happening here is that actuals is being updated directly from the timesheet. So it's synced from time entered into the Microsoft PPM system, or could be pulled in from third-party systems. In this case, it's coming directly from the timesheets. And we also have the project plan dimension here, which is automatically syncing the current forecast coming from the Microsoft PPM schedule. So it's completely driven from the bottom up and the assignments in the schedule. But I have the flexibility and freedom now to still operate a top-down forecast in my plan dimension, right? So you can do it either way, and gives people flexibility not to have to wrestle with the schedule to do a simple kind of Excel-based forecast, but have everything in one place. So it's very easy to do this, and we don't have a huge amount of time, probably 5 more minutes in this demo, because we can, as with anything in 360, as I said, it can be integrated with a schedule or can be top-down. So in this case, if I click on the project integration here, we're simply able to establish mappings between the schedule and the UMT360 resource plan in a very simple manner. In this case, it's probably the most simple example. when my internet plays ball. We're actually simply mapping back to the key phases coming from the schedule. So these are the summary tasks in the schedule, back to the phases that have been defined in UMT360. And we're translating all resource assignments automatically in that regard. So if Jan here is working as he is in multiple phases of the project, it's going to pull in those values relative to the right phase. So it's a mapping between the summary task and all the assignments within that task back to the abstract level within the UMT360 resource plan. The same holds true for capitalization, right? If you now start to drive capitalization reporting based on capitalized flags within each task in the schedule, we'll automatically read that and pull in the capitalized amount into the right assignment here based on flagging, as I showed it in the previous screen, flagging capitalized categories. So lots of ways this can be established, but the most common way is, again, planned, committed, planned and committed being managed in sort of UMT360. Actuals coming from the timesheet, and providing the ability to sync a project plan, or whatever you want to call it, schedule dimension from the schedule, and then compare and contrast with the freedom still to plan top-down, or forecast, sorry, top-down within your planned dimension. Okay, I know we're moving through this pretty quickly, but hopefully you're seeing how this really does kind of provide that kind of Excel-based flexibility, but everything is in the system, so it's instantly reportable, governable, and reportable. Now, what I'm going to do is actually move from this project level here. So I'm actually going to use the associations feature. And I'm going to go to a program that we've defined in the system. So I'm going to roll up to the Global Innovation Program, which this project is relating to. Now, I'm not going to steal too much thunder from our webcast next month, where we look at the UMT360 Program Manager app that provides complete program management capabilities within Project Online and Project Server. But here we're looking at a distinct program entity, which we're managing independent, but completely integrated with the underlying projects. I came from the project to the program level here. So if I actually look at the roadmap for this particular innovation program, Global Innovation Program, we'll see all the projects here and the dependencies that exist between these projects that relate to this program. Here's the Global Innovation Program. Here are all the projects that support it, including innovation management we were just looking at and health assessment reporting tool we were just looking at. It actually has a dependency of other programs, but that's not why we're here. But everything is integrated, project to program, but you have to be able to manage programs as distinct things. Now, remember I said one of the key requests was how do we start to allocate resources top down at different levels in our portfolio hierarchy. So in this instance, I can have a program level resource plan where we allocate resources to the program and then start to allocate resources down to the underlying projects in those resource plans and compare and contrast, top down versus bottom up. So a lot of flexibility, as I said, to put a resource plan at any level in the portfolio hierarchy that you define. Following that through further, I'll actually move to the portfolio level. So we actually have a portfolio of portfolios, if that makes sense. So here we're representing a portfolio which we may be looking for to capture high-level budget and other things. In this case, I've also established a resource plan at that portfolio level. You could apply resources to a given portfolio or a product or a program, whatever we want. In this particular example, what we're doing actually is using this portfolio level to forecast on an annualized and multi-year basis capitalized work. So we're taking all the folks within this portfolio and saying, what do we think their capitalized work will be for this year coming up and potentially out years depending on your forecasting duration. Now, what the benefit of this is you can maintain for planning purposes capitalized and non-capitalized forecasts at the portfolio level. And then I can start to report on that based on bottom-up, the capitalized actuals and forecast work coming from the underlying projects, which is key. Many of our customers are struggling with being able to forecast and plan capitalization and track against that in an easy manner, whether it's being driven from the schedule or driven from the UMT360 resource plans. Now, as I said, everything, whether it's coming from Microsoft PPM or UMT360, is reportable. Actually, I have it already open here. So I could go to the Power BI dashboards, and we include a lot of out-of-the-box reports and dashboards that leverage both the Microsoft Project Online dataset plus the UMT360 dataset. In this case, we're looking at a series of capacity planning dashboards. Now, there's many different ways you can visualize this information. There's just 3 or 4 ways that people like to visualize capacity and resource information, and really, none of them are necessarily right or wrong or better than the other. This view, for example, is showing me all up sort of capacity planning dashboard. I'm looking at my current utilization rate, my target utilization, my capacity versus my demand by role. We can drill down into any one of these things. We've got a over allocation of these skills. We've got some availability with the others. I can move to more of a traditional heat map view, right, where I can actually start to say, okay, well, what is my availability of my key resources or by role here. I can even drill down and start to see the named resources and get a picture of that. This is actually looking at current availability just based on in-flight work, projects that have been approved. If I want to look at projected availability based on all the demand as well as the in-flight work, you can switch gears and look at it this way as well. Now, the reason I showed you the capitalized work plan is this report is picking up on exactly that. It's looking at that top-down portfolio forecast of capitalized work and then extracting all the capitalized work, both the actuals and the forecast coming from the approved projects, and comparing and contrasting. How far am I off my capitalized top-down budget forecast is my bottom up, and comparing and contrasting. So once you have the flexibility to start to organize these resource plans based on how you want to organize your portfolio hierarchy, you can build a lot of very interesting reports and views, whether you leverage views like this or some of the out-of-the-box Power BI reports that Microsoft released, or using Power BI or any other of the Microsoft BI techniques or capabilities to build your own reports and dashboards. So I think I went through that pretty quickly, but that's all the time I have to focus on the live demo today. So I'll go back to the slides. So I gave you, we didn't look at everything, far from it. I gave you kind of the executive quick tour of some of the current capabilities that really address that simplification of resource estimating and forecasting integrated with the resource management capabilities of the Microsoft PPM solution. Now, what I want to give you now is a brief glimpse in terms of what's coming in the next 4 to 6 months, specifically for the Resource Manager app. We have teams working on the evolution of all our apps for the Microsoft PPM platform. So again, this is prioritized by our customers that are using the Microsoft PPM platform. One of the first things, and I mentioned this earlier, is the bulk edit. I don't want to be able to go down, have to open up every project to update a resource plan. I want to be able to see all my projects in one view, very quickly update my resource plan, forecast, whatever, and sync it back without that check-in, check-out. Bulk edit. This is exactly what that does. Geared more towards the project manager in this release, and this is going to happen before the end of the year, where the PM can simply see all their projects, can update their resource plans in a very easy and intuitive manner across any of the dimensions. Search resources by availability. I showed you the current search capability, which is how do I easily search my enterprise resource pool and build team on any metadata, location, skill, whatever it may be, through that add resource dialog, and how that automatically will build the resource plan and also build the corresponding team in the Microsoft PPM schedule. What we're being asked for next, and what we're delivering before the end of the year, is to add the ability to, before you add a generic or a name resource to the plan, to very quickly be able to see who has availability. So automatically stack rank my enterprise resource pools for who has availability during that time period. And the colors here represent they're fully available during that time period, or they're partially available. So I can go from the total view into the expanded sort of timeline view, time-based view, and really get a quick picture. So very, very easy. You don't have to jump off to other reports and dashboards to figure this out. It is, I want that resource. Do they have availability? Yes. Add them into the resource plan, all in one simple dialogue. This has been asked for a lot by our customers. We didn't get too much into the secure resource rates, but we can manage secure rates that we control who has permissions to those within UMT360 and deal with the translation of resource values to cost, as I kind of loosely showed in this demonstration. What we're being asked to do next is actually manage time phase rates. Someone's rate can change over time. That's coming. Also, I don't want just global rates. I need to be able to manage project level custom rates as well. Now, one of my consultants could be working for a customer being charged at one rate, another customer at another rate based on different skills that they possess. How do I emulate that within the Microsoft PPM platform in a simple way? Global rates, project level custom rates. Resource manager view. That same bulk-headed experience I just talked to for the project manager, we want to give the resource manager the same and present a lot more information so they can see the impact on their team and easily commit as needed. So I hope you agree a couple of things, that there's a lot already there today that can be utilized in simplifying resource estimating and forecasting and driving data integrity in the demand management and capacity planning process. And there's a lot coming. And this isn't the end of it. There's a continuous roadmap of more and more capabilities that we are prioritizing monthly and quarterly based on our customer base. So we looked at the UMT360 Resource Manager app specifically, but I didn't talk about the other apps for Microsoft PPM. I'm not going to go into detail on any of these, but now remember we have this Gartner certified enterprise portfolio management solution. We've taken and we continue to take capabilities from that solution and break them out into best of breed apps for the Microsoft PPM platform. So things like, if you want to improve cost management, Cost Manager, we looked at that briefly. Benefits management, if you want to establish a true benefits realization framework, we looked at Resource Manager. Roadmap Manager, we touched on, you saw a roadmap view, but how do I simplify how I manage cross-project program portfolio dependencies? And how do I then leverage that information and key milestones to generate strategic roadmaps, which is a key buzz at the moment. UMT360 Demand Manager, we just looked at the resource plan as part of the Demand Manager in terms of early stage estimating, but how do I build comprehensive business cases within the Microsoft PPM platform, looking at cost-benefit analysis, top-down resource planning, scoring metrics, and a variety of other things. Program Manager, we'll actually have a webcast on that in a month or so, maybe less, December 7th, I believe. And that is, and we looked at a program, but that is, how do we start to really manage programs as distinct investment entities, which is one of the key things to do in terms of business transformation, and how we can integrate the underlying project portfolio. And again, we're going to look at that, how that can be done in an upcoming webcast. Data exchange, a natural bridge to be able to integrate Microsoft PPM plus the UMT360 capabilities with different line of business systems, ERP systems, for example. Things like Jira Connector, point of best of breed kind of connectors with individual systems to harmonize, how work is being managed across different systems. And this is just related to Jira. So when I think about the UMT360 apps, I'm not going to go through all of this, but key benefits, right? I mean, the seamless integration, UI and data integration is why people end up buying these apps. And they're not just seamlessly integrated with Microsoft PPM, they're seamlessly integrated with one another, right? So you could start with Resource Manager, then add Cost Manager. You could start with Cost Manager, then add Benefit. It doesn't matter. They incrementally build to provide you with a end-to-end project, program, and other enterprise portfolio management, or management of other enterprise portfolios in one solution. So they're designed to grow with you as you mature your PPM function into, well, wherever you want to take it, into hopefully a discipline that has a key role to play in the orchestration of all investments in business transformation beyond just projects and programs. So I won't go, you can read the rest of those. So we're coming close to the time. So what are the next steps? I just briefly showed you some of the core components today. If you want to learn more, want to demo and see how this can be applicable for your environment, request a demo. Let's see how the resource manager or any other one of the apps, Microsoft PPM, or other solutions that are part of our enterprise portfolio management solution, application portfolio management, product portfolio management, capability portfolio management, anything, we want to learn more about this solution, just reach out to us, and happy to do a demo for you. If I sparked your interest in terms of what is the progression of my PMO, we're here today, but we want to go somewhere else tomorrow. We want to position our PMO as more strategic minded. We want to have a seat at the table in terms of whatever the new enterprise office is going to be, strategy realization office, business transformation office, enterprise PMO, whatever it's called. No, let's make sure that the traditional PMO team has a seat at the table alongside business architecture, enterprise architecture, finance, strategic planning, which ultimately it'll be a combination of disciplines that form this enterprise PMO, strategy realization office, business transformation office of the future. For those of you that, I forget, I think it was 33% of the people on the call that are on earlier versions of Microsoft PPM 2013 or earlier, if you're thinking about the cloud, come to us. We can help you do a feasibility assessment of when and how to move to the cloud, and build an all-important business case to show the value in terms of why you should do that. So, I mentioned this already, but because we're going through a kind of fairly rapid webcast series on the merits of some of, and all of really, the UMT360 apps for Project Online or the Microsoft PPM system, you'll receive an email shortly inviting you to the next webinar on December 7th, as mentioned, focusing on how to build an effective program management discipline within Microsoft Project Online with the UMT360 Program Manager app. It's a good session. I would encourage you to join it. So I think we're up on time, but we said we would pause for Q&A. So let's do that now. So there's questions on the all usual questions on licensing, and also will I get the slides, right? So yes, you always will get actually a copy of the audio or the whole rendition of this webcast plus the slides will be sent out. Now, if you question around licensing, probably not worth going into it in this session in detail. But one of the big changes when we moved from the enterprise portfolio management system to break it down into these distinct apps for Project Online and Project Server was it really significantly lowered the pricing point. Now you can start small by just starting with Resource Manager, adding on Cost Manager, and obviously it comes at a lower pricing point. Just like Project Online, this is a online-based service, and we do have an annual subscription license and per user subscription license. But once you break it down into individual apps, it's not expensive to get started, so you can start small and grow as needed. Yeah, always a question also about how do architecturally, how does this work with Project Online or the Microsoft PPM system all up, right? So UMT360 app is designed exactly the same way really as the project app was. Our team actually was the team while we were at Microsoft that made the transition in 2010 to move Project to being a native SharePoint app. UMT360 is a native SharePoint app. So if you're using Project Server, which some of you are, you can deploy UMT360 on that same SharePoint farm and you get that integrated experience I just showed you. If you're using Project Online, we actually use our UMT360 online service, which is an Azure-based hosted model, and it's what we call a side-by-side integration. So we then integrate our service with your Project Online tenant, and the experience, the experience I showed you is the experience you get completely integrated, but based on the architectural differences of the cloud multi-tenant environment, Office 365, and obviously the on-premise delivery. It's a side-by-side architecture. Can you give examples of third-party timesheeting tools we can sync with? Yeah, I mean, some organizations will be leveraging the kind of ERP systems, SAP, or the sort of new systems like Workday to capture time, you know, and then go through that reconciliation process. How do I bring it back into the project? Do we have to, you know, bring it down to the task level, or is there an easy way to bring it back to the project level? So, you know, SAP, PeopleSoft, Workday are examples that we have seen. There are obviously more. So, can you resource at the team level, for example, for an agile team? There are ways of doing that today, but we're actually, I actually had that in one of the key asks when we announced we were getting into the resource management game. So that is actually in our roadmap for early next year to actually systematically support, you know, how agile teams manage their teams and allocation. So there is possible ways of doing it today, but there's going to be more streamlined ways that we do it in the future. So what about defining capacity for operational and maintenance work? How does the tool handle it? There's a variety of ways, right? The first thing, and this goes back to the Vic model, we want to look at how we want to structure operational and maintenance activities, right? Because, you know, traditionally within sort of Microsoft PPM, you kind of say, you know, there's a couple of ways of doing it, right? I'm going to have my resources 100% capacity, and then I'm going to maintain my projects as part of the demand, and I'm going to have maybe a file or administrative bucket that is where all non-project time goes, right? It could be just a series of tasks within that for different activities. So it's available in timesheets and other things. That's one way of doing it. The other way of doing it would be just to, you know, you say, look, actually I'm going to take 30% of my capacity off every resource to deal with maintenance work. And actually UMT360 supports that. You can actually establish what your FTE equivalent is. But, you know, in answering that question fully, we need to look at how we want to structure and capture maintenance and operation work. It's not just around capacity, right? It's also could be about how we want to look at deriving cost of ownership of other things. For example, going into that connect piece, if I want to be able to understand, you know, the total cost of an application, and this is one of the things that the 360 solution can do, you know, I'm going to want to structure my one-time project work, my maintenance activity according to that application, and capture in such a way where it all rolls up. So there's a variety of ways of doing it. We just need to, going back to that Vic model, look at where you want to take this and then how to structure it based on that, whether it's a bucket of capturing and estimating and forecasting non-project work, whether it's just adjusting people's capacity based on that perceived maintenance burden, or whether it gets into a more detailed model where we really need to start to organize that maintenance activity differently, because we want that to drive decisions on other things, such as other assets or whatever else that maintenance and operation activity relates to. So, I mean, feel free to drop off. I think I'll answer one more question. I appreciate all the questions coming in. How was the actual data in the resource plan populated? So, I think we may have answered this already, right? In the demo, it was coming directly from the timesheet. So when folks using the Microsoft PPM timesheet capture their actual time, we sync that data back to the actual dimension within the UMT360 resource plan. So planned, committed, actuals, and the project plan directly from the sync from the project plan, the dimensions we looked at. There's three ways of entering actual: sync from the timesheet, so as I just mentioned, manually entered, which I don't recommend, but it is an option. But also, you know, synced from other systems like we talked about it, based on an earlier question. So again, thank you for your time today. Hopefully I piqued your interest in this app. There's a lot more to learn about it, so please reach out if you feel you want to. Then we look forward to seeing you on the next webcast, Effective Program Management.